Hey 3DMJers, this is Andrea Valdez and you're listening to the 3D Muscle Journey podcast. Today I am talking to Eric Helms and Brad Loomis about how we have learned to eat like semi-normal humans after many years of restricted or absurd dietary behaviors. At the time of this recording, Eric has been on a bit of a roll recently diving into food behaviors, what it means to eat intuitively, the pros and cons of internal and external dietary cues, and how we can use all that information as coaches and athletes who are trying to be as big and strong and shredded as possible. So we let him take the lead on this one, grilling us and himself about our journeys to and through the problems that we created for ourselves as we tried to become competitive physique athletes. I can bet a lot of you will relate to our issues that we've had in the past, and we hope to give you some hope, clarity, and strategies on how you can start digging yourself out of the sometimes very dark tunnel that is created when you care way too much about how you look. As always, if you have any feedback or comments on this particular episode, head on over to 3dmusclejourney.com or to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/team3dmj and leave it under podcast number 113. Thanks again for checking out our show. Please enjoy my conversation about learning to eat again with Brad Loomis and Eric Helms.
I think it'd be really cool to go through some of our personal experiences with how we first got into bodybuilding, maybe even how we used to eat before bodybuilding, because I know, Andrea, you have been a competitive athlete forever.
Sorry.
And then how bodybuilding has changed our lives, and especially our relationship with food, and then maybe how we've gotten back to a place of being a little more quote-unquote normal with our eating. So
Yeah.
I laugh because I was such a fat kid. It's crazy, but sorry. That's why it made me giggle, because it was like absurd what I used to eat.
Yeah.
That was all. Am I supposed to keep going? You sound like you had more to say.
Well, I figure we could go from there. I mean, because then we can talk about some of the potential pitfalls, what we see as coaches, and some of the things we're trying to do more of to hopefully keep people with a better relationship with food long term while they do this crazy thing called physique sport.
For sure. Okay, I'll start with that, though, just because I think I started in athletics probably earlier than y'all. I was like 6 when it was like you actually,
Sure.
when you actually have to be a certain place at a certain time with a certain coach, all that. Maybe I was 7. No, I was 6. Like I said, I did so many years of being an athlete while literally eating only yummy things, as many as I could. And all day, all night. It's so funny. Like, I guess, I grew up in a Hispanic family from pretty close to Mexico, and we like our food. I don't think it would be weird if any of them heard this, but almost everyone in my family is overweight or obese or somewhere on that, or diabetic runs in my family, like all that stuff. And I think I was the black sheep very early on because I bounced around everywhere. That's how I was put in gymnastics. And I literally from the age of 6 just did some sort of practice in some sport for, I don't know, 2 to 5 hours a day, And so I think I was a little chubbier than my fellow gymnasts or whatever, but it was never a problem. I think I would have been a normal-sized kid, pretty much. I was always like a strong, fast, explosive little kid, but I ate some like oatmeal or cinnamon rolls in the morning. I would have lunch money and spend it on a little bit of food, mostly like potato chips and vending machine candies. And then I didn't really like meat till I think I realized I needed it in like high school. So I had like cheese sandwiches all the time on the way to gymnastics practice, like cheese sandwiches and chips. And then after gymnastics, because it was really far from my house, like we would just pick up food on the way home. Like it was a disaster, but it never caught up to me. I didn't think anything of it. No one in my family thought anything of it. It was all convenient food and inexpensive. Till everything started hurting when I got really high up in gymnastics. And I don't think I even considered it that much. Like the higher in level that I got, like in adolescence, like say 11 to like 14 or 15 years old, when I was at my peak in gymnastics, that's actually when I was like the leanest, you know what I mean? Because I was practicing so much more. So I was by no means overweight, by no means underfed, but I mean, no protein, no vegetables, no micros of any sort. It was bad. I'll leave that there.
Did you
How
actually
I started.
start modifying your nutrition for gymnastics, or did you ever?
I never did. I
Okay.
never did.
So
Because I stopped
that
when I
fully
was in
came
middle
from
school. Yeah, I literally did not consider my food whatsoever till probably undergrad.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is really common too, because I was in gymnastics and practicing so much when that stopped, which I'm sure a lot of listeners, when you get out of high school and you were, say a multi-sport athlete, and then in college you don't make, the number of high school athletes that make into college is pretty small. So I don't think my story is super different from a lot of people that would have been extremely active through adolescence and then not so much once undergrad starts. And I was cheering in undergrad, so I wasn't wearing a lot of clothes to perform in front of like large audiences. And I think that's when I started to be like, tumbling's a little harder, I'm a little heavier, and this is a little embarrassing. But the only reason I cared was because of all those things, like social things.
Right, not performance.
Not really. Like I said, like tumbling felt a little heavier, but I could always do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like all my stunting was easier because I was picking up girls and I was still strong or whatever and still heavy. But I could always do it. Like nothing I was doing in terms of our performances or whatever was like really difficult for me. It just kind of started bothering me. And so then I tried things like eating Weight Watchers meals and getting on the elliptical sometimes. Mm-hmm. That was my big effort. And it actually kind of worked, to be honest. It did. That's all. I'll stop there for now. That's like me to my 20s.
Okay. So we're now in pre-competition or pre-bodybuilding.
Pre-bodybuilding, yeah. That was my pre-bodybuilding history.
Should I go next or Brad, do you want to go?
Mine will be really short because pre-bodybuilding, I'd never even paid attention to eating.
Same.
Never,
ever.
Y'all didn't even like. Were y'all chubby, thin, average?
I was thin until about 15, 16 when I started racing cars. And when I started racing cars, I got really chubby really fast because after the races, people were buying me beer.
Oh yeah, that's another reason I got fat too. I drank so much beer; it's outrageous.
Fried chicken and pizza afterward, So that was when I started getting really chubby, and I was chubby from about 15 until probably about 20, 22.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I was always just skinny, and
until I tried to be jacked, and then I got fat. Pretty much.
Yeah, no, yeah, pretty much. Like I thought not at all about food except for when I'm hungry and what I want to eat. Which it's funny, like in many ways we're like, oh, that's a disaster, or that's not healthy, or that's how people get overweight, or that's how people are unhealthy. But as we've now experienced through bodybuilding, there's another whole side to being unhealthy from paying attention to nutrition. Yeah. But yeah, it's funny, I ate a lot of food too. I had a large appetite, large energy expenditure. And I remember altering my food for track, but it was not in any way that was helpful because I would get nervous, and I noticed if I had food in my stomach, it would make me
vomit,
the stomach upset. Oh. So I would like do a 24-hour fast before meets, and then sometimes I would like collapse in the middle of a 400-meter race in the last 100 meters, and I had no idea why.
Oh my God.
Yeah, didn't improve from my junior to senior year at all in track, and I have a feeling that was a large part of it because that's around the time I started to do it. And I think that I got really serious into breakdancing, so I was doing that every day after school, which was burning a lot of calories. And I also I took a weight training class for one of my classes in my senior year, so I was burning all these extra calories, and then just fasting whenever I had to do high performance.
Solid. So. Sounds real productive. Yeah, that's a good point though, Brad. I mean, I say I started caring because I was in front of people or whatever. They didn't want to look like trash, but also I had to put forth some effort because at least twice a week I was getting hammered and then going to Jack in the Box at 2 a.m. and which is real productive. But at least there was protein in my diet with the burgers, you know. So that's good.
I was eating chicken. There was protein there. It was baked and fried and battered.
Yeah.
It was protein.
Yeah, but that's the thing though, right? Is I think any time in my life, I've cared about what I can do. My weight's never been a problem. It's always been when I've cared about what I looked like. Yeah. Either because I was big and trying or because I was skinny and miserable. One or the other most of the time. But okay.
So I also think it's interesting how each of us came into the sport in different eras by half a decade to a decade. So I started eating for bodybuilding in 2004. Brad, when did you start eating for bodybuilding, or not necessarily competitively, but to get jacked or whatever?
Yeah, it was actually pretty early. It was early in my college days. And you guys are going to laugh at this when I tell you this, but I decided, you know what, I want to be jacked and I want to look good naked and I want to have a hot girlfriend, right? So I started, you should have heard my son just laugh. So you guys you're gonna really crack up with this. I started working out. I got a gym membership at the YMCA. So this had to be 1990, 91, 92, somewhere in there. And I started reading bodybuilding magazines, and I would have 2 protein shakes a day. That was it.
You didn't eat anything else?
How many days in a row did that work?
I did that for about a month.
What?
Yeah, I did that for about a month. I would bring my protein because I was going to college, and to pay my way through college, I luckily sat on my butt all day driving a mower at a golf course. So I didn't have a lot of expenditure, right? Mm-hmm. But I'd fast in the morning. At lunchtime, I would go and get my little shaker bottle with my protein powder in it, and I'd fill it up in the milk dispenser in the pro shop, the restaurant there. Then I'd go work out after work, and I'd go home and I'd have another protein shake at night.
So you just had milk with protein in it twice per day?
Yep.
Thank God for it being milk.
Yeah, not water.
Not water. Man. So you were on like the high protein baby diet, basically.
Pretty much. Yeah. And that's when I really first started eating for bodybuilding.
Or not eating.
And I mean, I will say that I lost weight. I lost quite a bit of weight.
That makes
and
a lot of sense.
I did gain some muscle because I was basically a newbie in the gym. Mm-hmm. And I got strong quick.
So obviously everything you're doing works perfectly in your head.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're probably having like 120 grams of protein per day tops.
If that, yeah.
Yeah. That's like if you had like 2 scoops in milk.
Yeah.
Each time. Man.
Oy.
So you probably got pretty lean in that month, I'm imagining.
I did. I got pretty darn lean. I was pretty happy with myself, actually. I was pretty happy with how I looked. And after that, gosh, it was just kind of, I started eating normal again and just kept training and doing my little body part split workouts. And I really don't want to say that my obesity ever, maybe when I first got married, you know how that is. You put on your first 15 pounds when you get married, but never was really a chubby person after that.
Okay. That's interesting. So when I started lifting, I didn't really change anything at first, except I just became protein seeking. So I went from 175 to 190 just without trying in like 6 months, just because I got hungrier and I ate more protein. And I was lean. I definitely stayed lean but got muscular. So that was kind of cool. But then I was like, I'm not big enough. And I ate everything for the next year and a half until I was 220 pounds with only 2 years of training under my belt. Yeah, I looked a lot more like I played football, but wasn't doing my off-season conditioning work than a bodybuilder at a certain point. So yeah. And just to put that in context, I'm 6 foot and I didn't make 220 look good until last year, or 2016, I should say. So doing that in 2006 or 2005, I can't remember which one it was.
10,
it was,
11 years before it looked okay.
Didn't look I didn't look the part. So.
Oh, well.
But that was the first time I really paid attention to nutrition as well.
Yeah. I think what I did was bodybuilding. Okay, so if mine, I didn't start till maybe 2010. So like I said, at first it was like, I don't want to get fatter, but I still want to party all the time. So I'm going to have some lean cuisines and Weight Watchers meals and get on an elliptical 3 to 5 times a week for like 30 minutes. And that made me feel better and good or whatever. And I think it kind of, I think it got me comfortable in a gym, like a gym, right? I was always comfortable in like cheer and gymnastics places because that's where all my sports happened up until this point. But that was like my first gym membership, and I would walk in, go straight to the elliptical, and leave because I didn't know. Like I didn't touch weights for a long time after that. I mean, but obviously, because of all the body weight stuff I'd done, and like I said, I was a base in cheerleading, so I was basically like jerking every day. But my friends, that sounds really bad. That I was jerking my friends every day. But
I started jerking every day a lot younger than you.
But not your friends, no. Just you. But putting my friends above my head I was stunting. That's the best way to say it. Cheerleading stunting.
Stunting?
Yeah, stunting. And it was all girl squad, so yeah, I was always a base. Because if I was a co-ed, girls are usually in the air. It's neither here nor there. So then, that was kind of it until when I went to Houston. No, I went to boot camps then. That was the next thing. I was comfortable in a class
So you went from being the number one stunner to the boot camp.
Yeah, to ellipticals to then boot camp. Because when I moved away to Houston for my internship, my roommate and I went to 24-hour fitness. And she took me to my first group exercise class, I think, or something like that. And I kind of liked it. It was pretty hard, so I did that for a long time. I did that all through grad school, too. I really liked classes till I started lifting weights. But in there, somewhere in like the elliptical / body pumpish boot campy era was when I started reading bodybuilding.com, and I learned I heard a little bit about the counting macros, but it seemed complicated at the time. But then I also saw like this whole rule of thirds. Like when you eat, you need to have a third of your plate is protein and a third of it is vegetables and a third of it is protein, right? So I tried. And that was the first time I actually thought about like what foods are made of. And I think introducing fats on purpose every meal actually made me gain a little weight, and I was kind of confused because I'd never done that on purpose, and I never like seeked out nuts and nut butters and put olive oil on things. That's really not a bad rule of thumb,
though, when you think about it.
It's like, not.
Protein, veggies, and
but I also, and it was like 5 times a day, and I think that's where. Yeah, like I'm eating these things, which probably wouldn't be a bad rule if it was like, and eat when you're hungry, but it was like, as soon as I wake up, and when I go home from this shift, and when I do this, and that, and I was just like stuffed all the time. And I'm like, oh, they said I would be stuffed all the time because I'm eating vegetables now. And then I was like, I weigh more. What the fuck? So that didn't work out very well.
And were you lifting weights this time?
Not for size, for not get fatness and fun. So it'd be like my gymnastics conditioning is what I would do. Like I was comfortable doing the elliptical and going into group X with like 10-pound dumbbells by myself and doing like lunges, some V-ups, some like little box jumps. Like it was not barbells on my back for a long time. Mm-hmm. Nothing like that.
Okay. All right. So, Brad, when did you first start eating for competitive bodybuilding?
I think my first introduction to it was in 2001. They had one of those little transformation competitions, before and after, where you hold the newspaper up.
Yes.
And that
like Body for Lifestyle?
Exactly. Body for Lifestyle.
I don't know what Body for Life is.
Bill Phillips, the guy who started EAS, he did a big competition.
Yeah, he would always do a big competition where they'd like give away like a Lamborghini or something like that to a winner or something.
Something crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was a transformation thing, before and after.
Okay.
But in 2001, they were going to do that. So I started seriously training for that like 1998, 99. And I'm like, I can't just go up there and lose all this weight and be skinny. And so it's funny because I remember then thinking how cool it would be to make a menu and follow that menu and eat the same food every single day and the same times and everything. So at that point, I thought, you know what, let's save that for another day and let's just do what these folks say and eat protein powder with every meal. And of course, it was 6 meals a day, right? Breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then snacks in between.
By the way, buy our protein.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
And you obviously need it all day, every day, or it won't work.
And I will say that I felt like I got pretty jacked doing that. And then when it came time to do the competition, it was like a 12-week competition. Then I made my menu, and I followed that menu to the letter. People would, at the hospital I worked at, people could set their watch by
when you were
meal
eating.
I was coming into the kitchen to eat. You know what I mean? Oh, Brad's got his apple and protein powder. It must be 2:00. And I did that for that competition, and I did that for my first competition in 2003, and I did that for my second competition in 2004, and I did it in 2006 when I came back because I took 2005 off. I followed a menu, and then what I would do, I mean, it's funny. I still have one hanging up in here. I would just deduct food every week. So if I had a full meal replacement, 1 week I would cut that in half. And then the next week I would pick on another meal. And if I had 6 ounces of chicken, I'd cut it down to 4. And every week I would just cut a meal down. And I never weighed myself. I never once weighed myself in those first 2 years of competition. And
that's awesome.
It got shredded.
I love that you had the decreasing protein intake diet.
It wasn't just protein; it was just a meal. Just pick a meal, So like sometimes it was oatmeal. Okay, I'm going to cut down from a cup of oatmeal to a half a cup, and a half a cup to a quarter of a cup. And so it was just random. Pick a meal, and usually it was just the biggest one. I would just pick on that one and cut it in half.
That's awesome.
And for reference, you got pretty shredded in each one of that 2003, 2004, and 2006 thing, didn't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
well, I mean, it's the same thing. You're counting something, and you're increasing the deficit somehow. Yeah, that's cool.
And were these 12-week diets?
No. The first one, when I got really shredded, I started January 1st, and I didn't get up on stage until June 13th. So it was like about a 6-month diet.
Okay.
And I did that again in 2004, and then I did it again in 2006 when I met.
What would you do when the show was over?
Oh my gosh!
Binge your face off.
And then keep in mind, I got a big appetite, and so yeah, I would binge big time. We had a barbecue. I went up to Klamath Falls to see my folks after my first competition. We had a barbecue, and yeah, it was.
Did you throw up?
People were shocked how much I was eating. I did not throw up, but I was just like in 2009, Eric, at your house, bent over in the front yard trying to breathe because my guts were so full that my diaphragm would drop down,
Oh, Lord.
Did you ever regret it? Try to stop, but you couldn't, or think there was something wrong with it, or were you just doing what you wanted to do?
I didn't in 2003 because not long after I did my competition in 2003, the local kind of fair that we have here, they wanted me to do a talk and like a little presentation at the fair on like health and fitness. So I immediately made up a new meal plan and got right back on it just so I could be in shape and pose at that fair thing. And that was like August or September. But I did regret it in 2004. Because I did a competition in San Diego, did pretty good. 2 weeks later, I gave like a little booth, kind of a body fat testing booth thing at one of the other local fairs here. and I had pictures of me on stage, and they're like looking at the pictures, and they're like, "How long ago is this?" I'm like, "That's 2 weeks ago." And they're looking at me going, "What happened?" That's when I regretted it.
Okay, so but you never like thought there's anything wrong with what you were doing. It wasn't until someone else put social pressure on you to not understand why you were there. Okay.
Yeah.
See, that's interesting, and I think that was really common. I had a different experience because I went into it tracking and weighing and having expectations, but it seems like when I talked to you and Jeff, like back in the day, you'd crush yourself to get shredded, and then you within weeks get back to normal or maybe a little heavier, and then you'd clean up and you'd do it again. It didn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously there's issues with that, but there's also some nice things about that to where like
ignorance is bliss.
Yes, I was about to say that exactly. I was literally about to say that. To where if you don't feel a certain pressure to stay shredded, it's not a big deal, which I think as that's changed in the bodybuilding community, and as it has always been a certain way for more so women than men in my, non-female experience, but what it seems like, that's where I think people run into the most trouble. But now that there seems to be this pressure for everyone to be kind of lean all the time with social media and just the changing culture of fitness in some ways, I think that's where people seem to struggle a lot more with that natural predilection just to eat a lot after shows are over and gain weight.
Yeah, I think the other pressure is pressure of how you get there. It's like Brad thought it worked and he's not questioning it. It just does it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a big reason why people always have like the fear of missing out, the fear of doing it the wrong way. They'll read so-and-so got shredded by doing it this way. They're probably well on their way, but they think, shit, I should have been doing it this way. Let me change, and let me change, and let me change. And but back then Brad was like, it works, so I'm just going to do it again. Same with Jeff.
Yeah, I would always get shredded, and I would always win.
I just feel like that would be such, in a weird way, like you'd have such peace of mind knowing I figured it out, I know how to do it. Mm-hmm. And so I don't have to feel small or stupid when I see people doing it otherwise, because I don't even know people are doing it otherwise. Like you feel like you have this big secret and you figured it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Answers to questions do create more potential questions and problems, even though they can be helpful sometimes as well.
Yeah.
So Andrea, did you ever have a period where you were trying to eat to put on muscle, or was it always just trying to tone up, or what? What was your introduction into like serious weightlifting and the nutrition that went along?
It was in grad school. So I was, like I said, I was really good at. I was like the all-star of boot camps and spin classes. I was like all proud of myself. I'd like do the best at all the stuff.
I win all the exercises.
I do, yeah. Like I would be, and like the instructors would know me. Like the good boot camp instructors would be like, Andrea, do the demo, and I'm like, I got this. Like, don't you worry. Like I was real good at it. So yeah, that worked out kind of well for a while. And then, like I said, I moved to Houston, this internship, and it was like sports marketing. I was working with this team, and like we ate out all the time, and we were company dinners and game day, this and that. And so like I kind of let go a little bit, and I was really unhappy about it. Like I thought I had done a pretty good job, and I was actually pretty happy with myself. I'm like, okay, I feel good. These classes are fun. I don't feel fat. I just wasn't real worried about anything. I have my lean cuisines or whatever, and I'm not obese, and it's cool. But then, that time came. It was like a 6-month thing, and over the course of it, I got up to like 150 pounds, which is only like 5 pounds more than I'm now, but it wasn't lifting heavy, so I didn't feel good about it. And so then I went to grad school from there, and I was with a bunch of other kids that were also lifting, and little did I know, we're actual bodybuilders and all this stuff. But so that was my introduction to a lot of things. But the first thing was lifting with my classmates. So like I would teach functional fitness, or not functional fitness, it was called individual fitness, and a couple of the guys that were master students with me coached weightlifting at the time. And not like Olympic weightlifting, but like how to lift weights in a gym.
Lifting weights.
Yeah. And so we would teach those in like the big student gym at the same time. Then right afterwards, they would lift. And so they were my friends, so I started lifting with them. And it was like a body part split too. Like we would do legs, we would do back one day, we would do arms and shoulders one day. And I just did exactly what they did. And I was pretty strong because of my background or whatever. And it made me feel good that they were like, oh shit, you're strong. And I was like, yeah, I am. This is cool. And that was the first time I saw my body changing a little bit this whole time. Like it would always be real gradual and I would see myself get a little fatter and a little less fat. But this was like, oh, when I do a push-up, there's like little lines in my shoulders sometimes. And like
the muscular component of my body actually changed.
Well, and it's the first time that I worked out like in a mirror, and when I curled, I could see my like bicep moving, and I was like, oh shit. So I got and then we're testing. I'm in the lab for the first time, and next door to us was the metabolic lab, and they were always testing protein powders, and a couple of them were elite athletes themselves, and they were studying all this stuff. Like actually, Abby Smith. Do you know who that is?
Smith Ryan, yeah.
And now she's that. So Eric Ryan was in my lab the year before I got there, her now husband. But at the time, Abby's lab was across the hall. And she was like a college athlete runner, like super lean legs all the time. Like I super looked up to her. I don't think I ever told her that, but I did. And she would drink. She always had at her desk like all the protein shakes, and after she would work out, she would take them. And I remember distinctly being like, so after I work out, I should have this. And she was like, yes. And I was in a couple of I got to know her because I was in like some of her studies and stuff. Like, for those of you who don't know, in grad school, everyone's guinea pig all over the department.
Yeah, 90% of studies are what happens in grad students and then sometimes undergrads, if you want to know.
If you want to give them extra credit because you're their teacher as a grad student, you make them.
We know everything about how to make college students and post-grad students jacked.
Yeah, so that was kind of it. Is I was just around a bunch of meatheads, most of them guys, and Abby, and it was more like this excitement that I was changing and having fun. Like I was having fun because I just love activity, but I was changing. And then in that whole time was when Chris Foss, who is also now a doctor, was a bodybuilder being prepped by Lane Norton. And I saw him, like I didn't know him very well, but I saw his physique change over like 6 months. Yeah, and that's when, and then like I talked to him about what he was doing, and Jeremy Linecky, the BFR dude who's also a doctor. Man, I had a good situation there. I'm like name dropping left and right, and I don't even talk to the people anymore, but they were great to me. Yeah, and so I was just around it for the first time, and then when I talked to Chris about it, he told me about his coach. I look up his coach online. I'm like, oh my God, he's all over bodybuilding.com. Yeah, and that's when my bodybuilding.com searches went from like how this cute girl eats to like, oh, these are how competitors. These are competitors. And so like I started like Ava Cowan and what's her name, Pauline Nordine. I like read the shit out of her website, and that's when I started counting macros and learning about all that. So that wasn't until, that was like 2010, and I did my first show 2011.
Did you ever go through a period of what someone would describe as gaining or bulking, or were you just training hard and eating?
It was never, I want to get big. It was like, oh, I'm looking cooler because I can see lines. No. Right. I never had, no. I've honestly never in my life, which might be because I'm a female, I've never, like I've always said, like I want to get jacked or whatever, but I've never seeked weight gain in my whole life. Seeked? Is that the past tense? Sought after weight gain. But there have been healthier periods in my life where I haven't been upset about it.
Right. You've allowed weight gain to happen, or allowed a surplus to. Yeah.
Where I'm like, okay, this is good for me, kind of thing. But it was never earlier. It was after a couple real shitty preps.
Yeah. After you relearned to eat.
Yeah. Not even.
Okay.
Actually.
Yeah. Part of the process. Even.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we've gone through Brad's first competitions. We've got up to your first competition. Mine went straight from getting fat to cleaning up a little bit to then dieting for my first show in 2007.
How did you clean up? On purpose?
I think I just stopped trying to eat everything. Like it got ridiculous. Like I was having a full fat Ben & Jerry's every night after dinner, and we were eating out Mexican food 4 to 5 times a week, and I would finish whatever Barb didn't have. And we're talking like Georgia, like big meals, you know. I would have sweet tea. I would have full sodas. For lunch, I would go to a place that was called Barbaritos, I think. It was basically Chipotle.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would walk next door to a place called Smoothie King, and I would get the Gladiator, which is like a 900 calorie shake. So I would have 2,000 calorie lunches. And then some point later in the day, I was a personal trainer at the Y. I would have someone grab myself the Wendy's like grilled chicken sandwiches, and I'd get 2 of those. And I would also bring tuna, rice, and hard-boiled egg all mixed together. When I calculated it, I was eating around 6,000 calories for like a solid year.
Did that hurt?
I was all right. I was never hungry. I had to eat shit that tasted really good to get it all down. So Ben & Jerry's and Mexican was like my go-to. So thank you, guacamole.
Do you think guacamole and what? Please tell me. And sweet tea?
I was going to say thank you, guacamole and Ben & Jerry. That's all I was going to say.
Do you think that you created a, like, I guess that would be an eating disorder, like a weird love for shitty food? Like you created it? Like, did you need that Ben & Jerry's to feel like you did your job?
I was just purely paying attention to whether or not scale weight was going up. So,
okay.
I would do something to eat more, you know, and it started out with me adding just like more protein sources and shit like that, and more bodybuilder-y foods. And then I would just notice that it didn't seem to matter, like that wouldn't add weight. So then I was like, all right, well, I'll just eat out. Like I'll order 2 meals. Like I would order like 2 dinners when I go eat out for dinner, stuff like that, or eat Barb's and ask her to get something big, you know, and peer pressure her into ordering the biggest thing on the menu so I could have half of it.
Did she hate you at this time?
No.
Was she like, husband,
No.
what the hell are you doing adding?
I'm trying to get jacked. No, she came to hate me later in life. Yeah. No, she was cool because I mean it was fine. Like we were just eating, and it didn't affect her that much. I would just be like, hey, make sure you get something with a lot of food in it so I can eat it. And she'd be like, all right, whatever. I'm only gonna eat a reasonable amount of food because I'm a normal human. But yeah, so to go from like I think I finished my peak weight was like 220. And then I started prep around 210. So I lost 10 pounds just from like not trying to be obese. Yeah, exactly. I think I just stopped having Ben & Jerry's every day. That was it, to be honest.
Okay. That was it. Just like a 500 calorie, 600 calorie difference.
More than that, dude.
Is it really? How much is a pint of full fat?
Ben & Jerry's? Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking like 900 calories. Yeah.
That's all I did.
All I did was drop 1,000 calories a day.
Drop half a normal person's day.
Correct. Yeah, I dropped a small child's energy intake for a day. So yeah, and then I was like, all right, I'm gonna follow Lane Norton's contest prep guide, and I all of a sudden started tracking macros and calories. Just boom in January of 2007. Having never done it before, and I also arbitrarily got scared of other things because I read rules and things. So I was like, oh, well, I can't eat fat and carbs together because I need to keep insulin low while I'm tracking macros.
All you needed was cinnamon. You would have been fine.
Yeah, well, I did that too. Gotta have the GDAs, right?
Oh, man.
Yeah, no, I did a lot of stuff that was unnecessary, and I ate every, I think, 3 hours or something like that. Just, I was like combining anecdotes from people on bodybuilding.com and the science of Lane Norton, just out of both like fear and
I did that shit.
Science.
Yeah.
So and I also didn't get the whole like what foods are actually satiating thing. So I would have like I'd buy these little protein bars that were like very dense and not even that good of quality, and like could have easily had like a 6-ounce chicken breast and a salad, but instead I decided to have like something that's a snack size Snicker bar, you know. So yeah, that was kind of my first prep. So I started tracking macros in my first prep. I think you did too, Andrea.
Yeah, I did. It was.
But you were tracking macros before your first prep.
Yeah. It was like it all happened so fast. It was like I remember I sort of understood it and was kind of sort of learning to track on my own. Still partying because grad school. I still had a social life for quite a while. I was real busy in the lab, right? And I remember it was NSCA 2000. Like we went to Vegas, 2010,
Yeah, it's been
2011,
Vegas many years.
2011, because I know it's Vegas every other year or something like that. It was like, I think it was 2011, so it was like summertime, right? And I remember I remember going and being like, life's crazy. I have to do my presentation for this, da da da. And then I like very distinctly remember in my head being like, after this trip, you're going to give this like a real go. You're actually going to count your macros and do this and follow it according to a T. And that's what I did. I think I was like 148, 150. Like I was heavier again, but at least I was stronger this time. And I lifted or whatever. So I looked like I half lifted. And then that's what I did. I made like an Excel spreadsheet. I had like my 10 favorite foods. I had tabs on it that were like, these are the proteins, these are the carbs, and these are the fats. And like, it would be like turkey, this like specific deli turkey I liked. And it would be like 6 ounces is this many macros, 4 ounces is this many. And I would just like plug in, and I had like one for the day. So I'd copy and paste it and copy and paste these like 5 or 6 meals. So this was before like my fitness pal or whatever. And I would, before I go to bed every night, I'd get into my Excel sheet at my desktop computer and figure out what I was eating the next day or whatever. And I think over the next couple months, I probably lost 10 pounds. Yeah. Just paying, but I mean, I was obsessed though. Like it's like, it sounds real easy. I just had to try it, but it was like, I was also like, there was a learning curve. And so I was spending a lot of my time in the lab thinking about what I should eat the next day. It was not good.
Yeah.
But it like hashtag worked or whatever. So I thought like I got this down. And then that's when I went up to Chris Foss's office and I was like, okay, I want to compete. Will you help me? And it was him and Lindy. Maybe Jeremy was in there too, like Chris's now wife. And it was like them sitting in there and they were like, okay, well, this is how we would do it. We can help you. We've never coached a girl. We know how our preps went. We can try to kind of help you. And so what we'd do, and then, Chris was supposed to compete in the KC show, 2011. I guess he did. And then he did because he competed with Berto and Jeff. And I didn't know this till like way later in that same show. But he did KC, and then like 10, 11 weeks later, there's a NPC show in Oklahoma City that he was going to do. And I was like, I'll do it too. And he was like, I don't think you should do that. And I was like, I'm going to do it. So will you help me? And so, yeah. And so then I proceeded to lose 30 pounds over the next 10, 11 weeks.
Jeez.
It was terrible. But I would go, I know, and I would go, we like made up some random ass numbers, and it would always work. And so like every 2 weeks or week or something, I would meet Chris and Lindy and Jeremy at their apartment, and they would like look at me in my suit, and like I'd have terrible posing pictures because of it, but like I'd go over there, we'd talk about what to do the next couple weeks, and it was never like, you're losing, let's keep it going. It was like, seems like it's working, we're going to do another drop. And I would just take food over and over and over.
The auto deductions, that was a really common thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and so then I got to stage, and it was, oh my God, it was miserable. I mean, 30 pounds is a lot for anyone, but I'm 5'2". I got down to like 115.
That's a huge amount.
Yeah, it was.
That's 20% of your body weight.
It was.
Wow.
Like, I had a hard time getting through my days, like a real hard time. But I was like, I'm doing this, it's working, I don't know who the fuck I was. I had friends being like, hey, I'm not going to talk to you till this is over with. Like that kind of like, but I still had to like put my happy face on working with subjects and teach. And I would get up, take a red line pill, do a 4-mile fasted walk. Then go to the lab, work for a few hours, teach my classes, lift with the guys still, or by myself. Like, I got my lift in, and then at night do cardio before I went home at like 9 or 10. Oh, and then go by the tanning booth on the way home, like the lay down, big. So I like leave it like 5.
Too. I thought it mattered.
Yeah. So and
then you see the color, and you're like, oh, this doesn't matter at all if I tan.
Yeah. So it was fucking stupid. But I wouldn't have it any other way, you know. But yeah, I created not just a different, like, I was not just food focused, like I was a different person entirely. Like, my personality was different. I couldn't think about anything else. I was shitty at everything else I did at school. The
obsessive mindset, and not to mention just the physiological.
Yeah, I would cry for like
life.
I would cry for like no. They'd be like, I distinctly remember for some reason I had to go from the lab. I had to walk to the athletics department for something, and it's like maybe a half-mile walk. And I remember it was like a week or two before my show. And it was like, you have to get this thing done. It's across campus. And I was like, oh my God. I can't walk all the way over there. It was like an internal like meltdown. Like, I can't believe I have to walk this half mile at like 3 p.m. It was just like devastating.
Straight athlete, bro.
It was so stupid. Okay, I'll stop there. It's just crazy. That was my first prep.
Thanks so much for listening, guys. 3DMJ prides itself on keeping this show, our blog, and our YouTube channel as free and relevant sources of information for our community week after week. We also release additional free video courses as often as possible at 3dmjvault.com. If you'd like to help support our mission and our work, please consider becoming a monthly patron of our endeavors. Go to patreon.com/team3dmj and donate a couple dollars per month to our cause of helping educate and grow the drug-free bodybuilding and powerlifting communities worldwide. You can definitely choose to donate more, and if you do so, we'll send you a discount code for future use on any of our paid products, but any little bit helps, and we appreciate your monthly support in any amount that you see fit. So again, you can start assisting the team at patreon.com/team3dmj. That's patreon.com/team3dmj. Thanks so much for listening, and enjoy the rest of the show.
So this might be a good segue into just how much prep jacked this up. But an interesting observation I was thinking of while you guys were talking and while I was talking is that people with obesity typically don't have a great relationship with food.
Yeah.
Right. And as we all experience, most early stage bodybuilders don't either.
Right.
Whether they're binging to the point where people don't recognize them 2 weeks after their show, like Brad, whether they're losing 30 pounds in 11 weeks and can't walk across campus despite having been a lifelong athlete, or in my case where I was literally diagnosable and looking back on it with binge eating disorder after prep, and unhappy. It's funny. It's actually the same thing. Like, in our modern society, people eat typically those who get to the point of being with obesity, they're eating for a lot of reasons that have nothing to do with hunger and satiety.
Yeah.
They're just eating because food's there, eating for emotional reasons, eating for what the way they've been raised, all kinds of things. And bodybuilders are also not eating at all for reasons of fullness or satiety, and it jacks them both up just in different ways, which is very interesting. So,
but you wear it, and that's where one. But they're like, you're both equally jacked up, but one, according to society, looks appealing, and the other doesn't, and so therefore we have to look down on one and praise the other.
Yes, it's always fun to watch bodybuilders who with borderline clinical eating disorders talking shit about obese people online. That's always. There's no irony there. That totally makes sense. So yeah, so I think now would probably be a good time to talk about how each one of us, because I would say, as objectively as I can be, with you guys being my friends and colleagues and myself being me, that we all have now achieved the point of eating with pretty normal healthy behaviors, and there's nothing that someone would look at and be like, whoa, what the hell's wrong with you? And more importantly, none of us are unhappy with the way we eat. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah. It's
Yeah, I
definitely,
think so.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, I think I've come full circle in a way. It's like I remember feeling this way before I started eating the meal plans and things like that, and just trying to eat to get jacked.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also, not all the way the same, just because I didn't pay any attention back in the day. Like I remember looking back on things I used to do that were weird, but I just didn't care because it's like, here's what's in the fridge and I'm hungry and I'm going to eat it and I'm too lazy to get anything. Like I remember being like a 16-year-old kid looking in the fridge, finding nothing and just grabbing a block of cheddar cheese and eating a block of cheddar cheese
Because it's there.
Because there's no tortilla or, so whatever. Which, if you think about it, that's like what an animal would do. Like an animal was trapped in your house, and it could get the fridge open. It wouldn't care if there was a tortilla to have with your cheese.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I was just a primate in the house with food. But yeah, it's funny. I think I don't eat the same way, but I have all of these habituated things I do now. But I do eat. The portion sizes are largely mediated by my hunger. Or at least I pay attention to how hungry I am when I'm not trying to just, gain weight or maintain, if I'm trying to do something else. And that informs me in some way. But I don't know about you guys, but it took me 5 years from my first contest prep before I stopped tracking macros. And that went fine. I don't know how that was for you all.
From when you first started counting or when you first did your show?
So January 2007, I started tracking.
Okay.
And then I was tracking in some way or another. I wasn't always able to follow it, like during those binge eating periods post 2007, and a few spots in 2009, 2010, but never was that bad again. I was always hitting macros. And then it wasn't until I moved to New Zealand in mid 2012 that I was like, I don't know that I need to do this. Let's try not.
Yeah, I think there's a different... I think I could say when I stopped feeling like I needed to track is a different time than... Because I still track on occasion, just to kind of see where things are.
Sure.
But I think the difference is, like, and you've talked about this before, like, I used to track because I needed to. And I might not have needed to, like, if I... Like in prep, when I'm in prep, I literally do a prep. Like I eat the same thing every day because I find it easy, pretty much every day. But so it'd be one of those, like, if I woke up, didn't track all day, and if I went to bed, I could recall everything I ate and know exactly what it was because I just did it yesterday. That kind of thing. Like, obviously, I probably didn't need to track, but I did. But man, I think maybe a couple years ago.
Yeah.
When I started. The whole functional fitness thing and was like, oh my God, I need more food or I'm going to die. And it would be like, I think it was every other day for like a month. It would be like, okay, I'm tracking like normal. It's like 8 p.m. I'm so hungry. I need like 800 calories right now. Or I don't think like 800 calories, but I'm like, I need to keep eating. I need to keep eating because I've just lifted and did a Metcon and did my accessories and did my running and like, and it was like, the only thing that could permanently break me from was that I needed, my body got so loud with its requests, I guess if that makes sense. And I could handle, like, and I, obviously when you're in prep, it's also loud, but you have to track to keep you from doing that. Whereas like, to keep you from eating more and not just because I was dieting and in a deficit or whatever, but like I just wasn't doing much. It didn't take much for me to train and do my fasted walk. Like it really didn't compared to, what 3 hours of my like #CrossFit training was when I started that. So that was it. Is like, I was like, I'm going to die if I don't keep eating. So like I'd have my dinner and then more dinner and then more dinner and then more dinner. Like, oh, I can relax now. And that would happen like when it was that big change that first couple months. Every other day, I'd be like, this is fine. I'm normal. It's fine. It's a normal day. And then like 3 or 4 hours after training, I was like, oh my God, I need all the food. And then it was like, it's not even worth tracking anymore. I just need to listen to this. And then when I listened to it during the beginning of the day, I wouldn't be in such a rut. You know, it would like even out a little better.
So you specifically found that things got better when you started paying attention to hunger signals.
Yes. And it couldn't be normal, like lifting and just low intensity. It had to be like something that was, it was, like I said, such a loud need, like such a very obvious, because I can deal with, I'm a little hungry, I can deal with, but it was like, oh my God, I'm shaking. Like,
you know, there's an interesting there's an interesting paper that I reviewed in mass that where people with higher activity levels, they have more finely tuned senses of hunger and satiety. Like that makes sense. You know, that's kind of part of our like energy expenditure, energy balance regulation system. So, and that's another part of the whole obesity epidemic is that the opposite is true at very low activity levels, which is, you know,
because you never need food if you don't do anything like that.
So yeah, it's more easy for true physiological signals to result in eating. That's definitely a plausible hypothesis that you just put forth. So you know, because we eat for many reasons besides need. You know.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I think about it. Like, I stopped tracking in 2012, not because I finally thought I could, but there was a change in my environment to where it would have been an annoying thing I didn't want to deal with, and I realized, you know, I could have stopped tracking 6 months ago. You know, back in the beginning of 2012. Obviously, I couldn't have done it in 2011 because I was competing, but sometime in maybe around like Christmas, because I stopped my season in mid-August 2011, and within 2 or 3 months I was fine. Like that was probably my best recovery, and I think I would have been, sometime around Christmas I was good to go. I could have stopped tracking at that point, but I just kept going for another 9 months because
habit, because easy, because safe.
Well, I think a big part of it was because I had to be optimal, and I believed that if you weren't tracking macros, you weren't. You know, and now I've come very far from that belief, especially in the off season. You know, so it's interesting how that's changed for each one of us, and how it's had different triggers for each one of us. Brad, what do you think is what led you to stop tracking?
Kind of watching you lead by example, because I remember in 2012 when because I remember we had a meeting in 2012, and you basically proudly stated, guys, it's been 9 months since I tracked a macro. And I remember thinking at the time, I was like, what? He's not tracking anymore, you know? And at the time, I remember just literally thinking, is he not bodybuilding anymore? You know, is he not thinking about that anymore? Because it was so, and keep in mind, I tracked macros basically from 2008 until like 2016, right? Mm-hmm. It was a religious thing for me. And there was a long time there where I enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed looking at food because I would learn something all the time. So yeah, in 2012, when you kind of came out of the closet, I guess you might say.
Hey.
I'm
you heard it here first.
Team outwork.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. I was like, maybe this is something that I should aspire to do. And just like tracking macros for me was kind of a slow evolution. I would use kind of like some days I would follow meal plans, and then other days I would just sub things out. Oh, well, if I have a scoop of protein, it's about the same as, 2.5, 3 ounces of chicken. I had this slow evolution. It was kind of the same way the other way, where it was kind of like, well, you know what, maybe I'll track for a while, and then I won't. And then I'll just track calories and make sure that how I'm eating is meeting what I think is what needs to do, and then I wouldn't track for a while. And then I think it wasn't until probably late 2015 when essentially that was my last trip to the bodybuilding stage, when Jeff and I did the guest posing, and the last time I competed in the 74 kg weight class in powerlifting, that I was just like, I think I got this. I think I'm good. And of course, by that time, I could look at food and know what the calories were in it, And so I kind of relied on my knowledge. In about 2000, probably late 2015, early 2016, I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to track anymore. More so because it was beginning to get unenjoyable. It was becoming more of a pain. And that was kind of, I guess, the biggest thing that led me to not track anymore. But I'll admit it. I was okay with it at that time because I was like, well, let's look at what everybody else in Team 3DMJ are doing here. Eric quit tracking years ago. Berto only tracks when he's competing. And so it was kind of okay for me to do that. And I guess I just let it go, So it's been fairly recently, and I can say now that I do listen to hunger signals a lot, and yet I still can maintain my weight. I can still perform pretty good. I don't usually eat in the morning because I'm not hungry. I'll have my cup of coffee or a big thing of water or something like that, and then sometimes I'll be in the middle of my training back there, and my stomach will growl. I'll be like, I need to go get something to eat. And I'll go eat something, So, it's been a nice little evolution, I guess you might say, away from tracking macros.
That's really cool. I've really found hunger and satiety to be like really useful signals now. I'm sure I'll find them very unhelpful next year when I'm dieting down, but at a certain point at least.
Yeah.
But so for example, this year I did a cut in April. I got down from 100 kilos, 220 to what is 96, 90, like 220 to 210-ish. And then I cut down from 210-ish to 198 and then accidentally down to 195 while I was traveling. I accidentally got too lean at the end of my most recent cut. Some of that was just focusing on writing the second edition of the pyramids and not being in a hotel and then looking up and being like, shit, all I've had is protein bars and maybe I should go have like a real meal, Yeah. And then also training full body every time I could get to train while I was traveling, not knowing whether I'd be able to get to the gym. And then everywhere I went, people were always happy to train. So I was like training full body 5 times a week and eating nothing for 3 weeks. And oh my God, I lost another 2 kilos. Who would have known? Anyway. So yeah, but it was really interesting when I did these mini cuts without tracking, and my hunger would tell me things like I got the sense because I would notice I was really hungry and then think about my calorie intake and be like, oh shit, it's actually really low today. And then after I got a little too lean and I was coming back up, I noticed the lag in my hunger levels going back to normal, even though I was eating normal again. That part of it seemed to be due to time. Part of it was due to the fact that I wasn't going aggressively into a surplus. I was feeling out where I thought my maintenance might be because I was surprisingly lean. And then part of it was that I think I was just a little too lean. And I've put on maybe like 1 to 3 pounds of body fat since then, but not like it depends on the day. Like if I look like spilly, which I can actually see now, then I'm like, oh, I'm actually leaner than I thought it was. So it's funny, like the hunger signals tell me when I'm trying to be too lean now, or I'm just simply not eating enough. Like right now, I've gotten to the point now I'm like a month post end of my diet, and now if I'm hungry, I trust it and I go, I just need to eat more, and then my weight goes up for a day, then it comes back and I'm totally normal again. And it's like, oh, okay, that's probably, oh yeah, the day before that I didn't eat very much, so. It's become a really useful signal where previously I'd be like, these signals mean nothing. I eat for performance and fuel. I am the Terminator of gains, which I think was maybe necessary, but also quite counterproductive in some ways.
You've been weighing in every day since you started this cut, right? Because you're like in pre-prep mode right now?
No, I weigh in probably... during the cut, I've been weighing in like 2 to 3 times per week, maybe 4 times at most.
Okay. Since that started?
Yeah.
So it's like
in
2
April,
months?
the month of April, I weighed in like 2 to 3 times per week. And then the month of September, I was weighing in a similar amount. And then with the 3 weeks I traveled, I didn't weigh in at all.
Yeah.
And I got back and I noticed in the mirror, I was like, randomly, I got out of the shower in a hotel room and I was like, what the fuck? And I sent Berto a picture on Instagram. I was like, why do I have quad striations right now? And he responded similarly. And I think it was also just one of those days, like I had a hot shower. I just had a pump. Like all the things converged. And I was like peaked in my hotel room. And I was like, I shouldn't be that lean. And then when I got home, I was like, I am 2 kilos lighter. And I'm just
I like
just
how
strong.
weird of a situation that is for everyone but us. Be like, I looked really lean and jacked and I saw my muscles, so I immediately took a naked photograph to send to my friend.
Correct. So I immediately sent a nude to my best bud. Exactly. Yeah.
It's totally normal.
The best part is I sent one to my wife as well, but not for sexual reasons, just because I thought I was cool. And I sent it to her after I sent one picture to Berto. She was number 2 on my list, right?
He's like, hey, bro, check this shit out.
Yeah.
Eric, do you think that you will, when you start dieting again, do you think you'll just jump right into tracking, or do you think you'll use your satiety signals kind of to feel things out a little bit?
You know, that's a good question, and I'm probably going to let Berto answer that and see at what point he wants to take the reins, because I do think I could probably drop the first 6 to 8 pounds with just letting myself be a little bit hungry and having some structure and not eating out and kind of doing what I did for these mini cuts. I think I could probably get down to like 191, 192.
Is
I
that
think I
just
could get to
like
like.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, is that just like because you want to do it yourself? Or like you just want to see if you can?
I think there are benefits to it. So I think I could get probably like 10 to 12 pounds over stage weight. Maybe 15, depending on how really, really lean I have to get, or light I have to get as lean as I think I need to get with muscle loss. But I think there are benefits to that because it's a lot less stressful to diet without tracking or thinking about it or even weighing in that frequently.
Disagree.
In my experience. Well, at a certain point, it's not. Like when you hit plateaus and you're not tracking or you don't know what's happening and you don't have that sense of control, that can be really stressful. But for me, the experience of just making a few changes, ticking the boxes I know that I need to ensure that I am not, losing muscle or anything, and having less things to worry about, it makes it seem a lot more effortless. And I think, how many times have we seen with our athletes that people like I've had enough athletes who have stalled on scale weight, and I tell them to take a week off weighing, and they come back and weighing, they lose. But like the change was don't weigh in. And they lose weight to make me think that stress has some kind of impact on.
Yeah, but I think it's personality stress. Like it would would stress me out. Like it's way less stressful for me when it's like, hey, it's game time. We're gonna prep, even if it's at the beginning. Here, coach, you have the reins. Tell me what to do. Okay, got it, done. Like that's way less stressful for me than like having that. I don't want that much control. Huh?
You're more of a switch flipper than I am, though. Like you get into game time mode, which I think is fine. And I also think, like I said, I'll probably just let Berto tell me.
I like that though. Like in general, like you like programming for yourself training wise. Like I don't like programming for myself. I like coaching myself in the gym and making decisions for myself. That's also new for me, though. Yeah. Okay.
I didn't like programming for myself. I did for a while, and then I saw that I wasn't making gains. Gave it up, really enjoyed not programming for myself, and then I wanted to take the reins back, like we're talking a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Once I realized I wasn't being dumb and I could be smart. And it allowed me to pay attention a little more. Like I've been experimenting with different splits with the same volume to see just like how do I like to organize stress, which has been fun. Like if someone's following me on Gravitas, they think I'm just doing random shit. But they're like, he did upper lower for 6 weeks and now he's doing full body 4 to 6 times a week. This makes no sense. It's like I'm actually playing, experimenting. But anyway, like if Berto was like, no, I actually want you to track, I would just prefer more control. I'd be like, sure. But if he was like, actually, yeah, dude, just contact me when you go 3 weeks without losing any weight after being intuitive, then I'd be fine. But he might also be like, well, I wouldn't know where to start you. Like you'd have to figure out what your calories were, while you're doing this intuitive thing. So I don't know where the balance is, what he prefers a coach. So we'll just talk while we're in Austin.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason that I asked that is just anecdotally with myself. I had to do, just kind of 2 cuts to make weight for my weight class in 2017 and
Right.
2018 this year. And I started out tracking macros because I thought I needed to, because I was going to coach myself. And so I thought, well, I need to track macros here and make sure that I'm eating under what I know is my maintenance. And quickly got discouraged when 3 weeks later, nothing was really happening, And so basically just kind of gave it up and said, you know what, I'm not going to track anymore. I'll continue to weigh myself, same thing, 2 or 3 times a week, but I'm not going to track anymore. I'm just going to eat like I normally do, and I'm just not going to be stuffed. I'm just going to, be hungry a little bit longer, and I'm not going to eat until I'm full. And I continue to eat how I normally would eat, making sure that I'm getting my vegetables and meeting my protein requirements. And then sure enough, it just started flying off. And that's happened on 2 different occasions now. And so, I mean, it's arguable that maybe it just took a while for that deficit to kind of add up. But it's awfully ironic how on 2 different occasions, once I let the macro tracking go and then just simply ate to satiety constraints and just not to being super full, weight just started coming off. Both times I made weight. And keep in mind, I mean, I'm not talking like a few pounds. I'm walking around like 190 most of the time. And just doing that 8 weeks out, I would make the 183s easily.
Mm-hmm. It's like a pound a week without trying, or not without trying, but with using levels of hunger or levels of satiety to guide your eating. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was never starving.
Yeah.
And I would still be able to keep my numbers in the gym. So it's got to be good to some extent.
I think it's just, it is, if the unknown or if it doesn't feel like the unknown to do that, like if it feels like, because for me, what I like about it is it doesn't feel like there's less stress for that when I'm not tracking. I'm not paying attention to it because I'm not quantifying it. I'm qualifying it, if you will. So there is still some regulation going on. Like obviously I'm not eating till I'm full. I am thinking about how much did I eat yesterday if I did eat a lot. I am thinking about what do I look like, and I am thinking about the scale. So there's a lot of signals going in that helps me make a decision about how much I eat. But it's not purely just here are numbers that I'm going to hit. Mm-hmm. And I think, I think it's important to maybe move to a discussion of the difference between internal versus external cues. Yeah. Like it's definitely numbers, pure just hitting numbers no matter what, is more consistent in terms of your intake, and it will result in, but it's entirely relying on external cues. You're basically saying, you know what, hunger and satiety, we'll talk again in 6 months or whatever. Mm-hmm. At most, I'm going to be trying to ignore you, or control you by changing my food choices.
Yeah, when dieting.
Yeah.
Because I know, fuck, I just interrupted your thought process of like internal and external, but I think it depends on why you're tracking, right? Like, and I'm totally coming from my place all the time here, but I'm like, I like doing it sometimes to see where I'm at.
Oh yeah.
And it's never like I'm tracking because I have to hit these numbers. It's usually like, let's see what's happening today. Like whenever it was, I guess last year when I had like a weird thing that I thought was a hernia or whatever, and I didn't do legs for like, it was like 6-8 weeks or something like that. And I got on the scale one morning, and I weigh in maybe once every couple of weeks, and I was like 3 or 4 pounds down, and I was like, oh shit. Okay, well, just deflated lower half, but I was just like, what am I eating right now? Like, and I just, and it wasn't very much compared to what it had been like the month before, And so that's kind of, it's like I like knowing what I know now, and I like being on the other side of needing it. But I also, now that I know how to do it, I can't imagine there ever be like a year, because I'm someone who always cares about this lifestyle or whatever. I can't imagine going more than like 3 or 4 months without doing like a week of tracking just to see. Because I'm just like Brad said, like I'm just a curious person. Like I track the number of hours I work. I've always tracked my training. I keep data almost everywhere in my life that I can. So it's just kind of like now it's another thing that is fun to track versus it used to be like I need this to
Prevent
feel,
obesity.
yeah,
or be optimal, depending on who you're talking to.
More of that, yeah.
Because I've met a bunch of people who feel like, well, how do you not just eat? How do you know when to stop eating without tracking? I'm like, oh, you've been doing this too long, or you're staying too lean.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or like you said, people who just feel like if they're not tracking, it's the fear of the unknown, the fear of not being optimal, the fear of missing out.
Yeah, like I would feel out of control. Not like out of control, like, oh my God, I'm gonna eat whatever, but I'd be like, well, fuck, if I don't know, okay, so all right, it's dinner time.
How do I know I'm doing
what
I need to be doing?
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think there's a big difference between not tracking and not knowing too.
Good point.
Like every day, I add up in my head how much protein I've had, and if I'm short of 160, actually, I guess I could be 150 now that I'm lighter. But anyway, now that I'm short of 160, if I'm short of 160 protein, then I still eat by hunger, but the decision of what I eat is modified. It won't be a piece of fruit.
Yeah, like we know so
much.
Bar. We know so much that we're considering all these things all the time, but don't think about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or even this, and like you said, I will actively think about it sometimes, like especially if I see some kind of cue, like a surprisingly low weigh-in or randomly looking like I'm 8 weeks out, then I'll like that experience. Then I thought through, okay, how many calories have I been eating? What's going on here? Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think one of those days I ate 1,200 calories accidentally while I was traveling, and I'm like, well, no fucking wonder, like. So up to that point, that day, I went downstairs and I was like, I'm gonna order something big on the menu because this is silly.
This is silly. Well, like you can't unknow what you know, and I think we've been doing it so long. Like I know, like there's reverse to it too. Like if I eat out probably every other day for at least a meal. Like as in like I'm like a fan of like a Chick-fil-A grilled nugget meal with fries. Like that's like my favorite go-to post-workout right now. Or like a wrap from Schlotsky's or whatever. Like they're not shit meals, but they're on the way home from training a lot of the time. And if I go like 3 or 4 days without having a meal out and I'm eating all my foods that are at home, or I'm like obsessed with Snap Kitchen, which is this like meal delivery thing. Like the only way I'll get vegetables nowadays. Then I'll pee all the time. Like I know my sodium's low or whatever. Like I have cues like that are like, if I don't purposefully oversalt my food, if I'm eating at home, I get irritated because I can't sleep because I get up to pee twice in the night. And like protein, I never have to count because for some reason that is the one of all the macros that like, actually no, not even the one. I can tell, and we've talked about this before, whether I think it's bullshit or not, I don't know, but I feel like I can tell if I haven't had enough protein. Like I can tell what macro I need without tracking. If that sounds, I don't know if that sounds crazy or not. But like I'll get headaches, like feel headachy if I haven't had real meat. If I've had like just a bar and a yogurt and it's like 6 or 7 p.m., it's like I need a lot of chicken or beef right now.
That could be iron content or the creatine content too.
Yeah.
It's tough to know.
Yeah. So whatever it is, like, but I wouldn't have learned all that stuff until I stopped tracking. And like you said, you can see how you look.
Only fine-tuning like that, I notice, is if I stand up and I'm lightheaded. I can almost invariably tell you that all I've had is like fruit and water and like whey protein and yogurt or something like that.
Yeah.
And another weird cue too is like after I train, if I've had a hard session, it's like it took a long time. Like I used to, when I was just bodybuilding, whatever, be like, and protein is priority, and protein is priority. And I would have like 180 or 90 grams for years as like a 120 to 140 pound female. And then it took the performance whole aspect of it and lifting and getting some good conditioning work in to be like, oh, I need a lot of carbohydrate when I finish a workout like that, like 100 grams of carb. That used to be my whole day, mind you, a long time. But now I'm like, I can tell if I have like a 2-hour workout and I didn't have Gatorade and when I do. Like, and then if I'm in the middle of something, like I always have banana chips in my bag for like whatever. So I'm like I don't want to say real carb sensitive, but I like had just shut it off for so long that now I'm like, oh, it is energy. And I just needed to like, I think your cravings aren't necessarily always bad, and people say they have cravings for shit food, but it's like, I feel like there's different cravings for your needs if you...
Yeah, it depends on how you define a craving. Like,
Yeah.
if you have a craving because you feel like if you feel low blood sugar levels, that's not the same as, I walk by Subway in the morning and I'm like, oh man, I need some those cookies. Like those are different. One is a sensory cue and the other one's a physiological cue,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, so I guess the the experience that we've had all kind of reflects the research that when you look at a population, whether they are people with obesity or eating for non-true hunger and satiety reasons, or if you're looking at athletes or bodybuilders who are eating for non-satiety reasons, those are both risk factors for the same thing, like disordered eating and unhappiness. People who weigh in more frequently and who use MyFitnessPal are typically, they're overrepresented among populations who have some form of unhealthy relationship with food. So yeah, I think the big thing that probably is the takeaway for this is you should probably try to figure out some way to incorporate your hunger and satiety into your athletic career when you can, while still reaching your goals, and it'll probably be beneficial, in my opinion.
Yeah, I feel like for a physique sport, it's different than performance. Like, it's almost like hunger and satiety. If you listen to those, your performance will almost always be better, but your physique might not always.
Yeah.
Which is a real issue with today's social norm, right? Because I've seen the exact opposite, because people are too focused on gaining weight, and so they want to do things like use intuitive eating and use their hunger and satiety issues, or use their hunger and satiety signals, but at the same time they're fat phobic, and so they want to progress. They want to get stronger. They've got strength goals and performance goals that they want to meet, but because they're fat phobic, they will using satiety issues, they'll purposely undereat. You know what I mean? And sometimes I have to do coaching with clients that is kind of more so, okay, we need to track to make sure that we're not undereating.
Yeah.
We've kind of talked about this whole time now, tracking to get super, super lean, and making sure that we're tracking the right amount of weight loss and whatnot. But it's surprising to me how many non-competitors that are out there that are simply undereating. They have goals, performance goals, but they're undereating because of the social norm to be lean.
It's true. A cue is not necessarily inherently good or bad. You can have judgments about the way you should be or what you should be doing, and they can be informed, which can be healthy or unhealthy, which can then be informed by either one of the cues. Like, I've met a ton of people who, like you said, have pressure to look a certain way, so they live life hungry, and they think that's what they need to be. So I don't like feeling full. I feel bloated, or I don't want to, I'm not used to being satisfied at meals. Like, I keep myself hungry all the time because that's what I associate with looking the way I should. So you're not wrong. That's all internal, but it's still probably not healthy,
Exactly. And a lot of times it's counterintuitive to their goals, because especially now that I'm dealing with a lot more and coaching a lot more general population people, they have goals to do strength things, performance goals, et cetera, yet there have been in their own way for so long, just making sure that, okay, well, I got to make sure that I only intuitively eat to, it's not even really intuitively eat. They're never full. Because they interpret being, having a full stomach as being bloated or fat or whatever.
And that wasn't something I could even relate to until I'd done a contest prep. Like, I'd had, not that I think this is unique to men or women, but I'd had girlfriends who'd be like, oh, I just feel bloated. And I'd always be like, in my head, I would nod and be like, yeah. And then in my head, I'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
I do not like the word bloated does not have any kind of
You're
relationship
like, you have
to
to
what I've
take a shit
experienced.
or what's happening?
Yeah, I didn't get it. And then I would say, obviously, when you're binging post competition, you feel bloated, but that's not the same. I noticed like once you have gotten lean and then you have a normal kind of diet, you spill over. You retain a little more. Your stomach contents can be a little thicker around the middle, but that's like something you don't think about or notice when you're not caring about your body weight. And it's totally normal. It's just called how it feels to be after dinner, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but there's a lot of people who confuse being like having eaten with being bloated, which I think is something it took me, being too preoccupied with my conditioning to get to understand.
I didn't realize that the whole time I was bodybuilding, I was bloated because I ate so much produce.
Yeah.
Like until I started, I have to get up and like run and jump rope and like all this stuff. And I've talked about it a lot of times. Like I train in the first half of my day, so I have now developed. I say now, like the last 3 years, like the foods I eat in the first half of the day look very different than the foods I eat in the last half of the day. I eat
residue.
Yeah.
Carbs that actually turn into carbs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like jerkies, Cliff Bars, like I said, banana chips, like very light, airy, easy to digest things. And then like I won't touch, well, besides banana chips, I guess it's produce, but like not like I won't have apples or lettuce or anything like that. I don't have any of those vegetables until like probably after 5.
Yeah, you're eating energy-dense things that are low in fiber.
And then the opposite usually at night.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I wouldn't have learned otherwise, especially when it's eat as little as possible. It's just like salads and veggie plates and more salads and my stomach always hurts and my gas is always bad and I never have energy and I didn't realize that was like years.
I'm gonna eat a chicken breast and a bowl of broccoli and then go do a leg day. And I wonder why I'm farting a lot and feel weird.
Yeah,
like
and can't squat anything.
Yeah, or like even with me, like a lot of protein powders don't sit well, but I would have like protein oats, and now I've learned like oats don't sit well either, and neither does protein. But like I don't know what the fuck I was doing. I was like, this is obviously the best pre-workout thing to do, and it's like actually that's a never thing to do. I don't do either of those things anymore.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so what are some things that you've learned lately what have you learned? Why have you recently been obsessed with this topic, Eric?
Man, I think the big one is I've been reading a lot and updating the books and coming across this topic. And I think my biggest concern is I just don't want to do harm, and I've been a big proponent of actual flexible dieting, which is not just tracking macros, but the distinction between flexible restraint and rigid restraint, which is a line of research that was uncovered in the late 90s and persisted for a long time. But in 2015, a paper came out and it was followed up in 2017 where they said, hey, if you look at the relationship statistically between people who exhibit flexible restraint and rigid restraint, they share a ton of variance. It's actually really similar, which actually makes sense to me because how often do we see people who would describe what they're doing as flexible or don't put restraints on the foods they eat, but really still have that black and white kind of mentality around eating, and they put their macros on a pedestal. And like it's only when you remove the shared variance between flexible restraint and rigid restraint does flexible restraint become something that is neutral or positive for the most part. But what that actually is in the real world is actually I can do that statistically, but what that actually is hard to do because we run into people all the time who are super rigid, but they hashtag flexible diet, but they absolutely are not flexible in their mentality. They just happen to get exposed to tracking macros instead of eating from a food list. So I think it's actually really difficult. And I think in my mind, the distinction or what's the actionable behavior or what we should be paying attention to as coaches or athletes is not whether you're tracking macros or following a meal plan, but maybe we need to be focusing on whether or not we're actually in tune with our own hunger signals. And I think that is the big distinction, is where those cues are coming from. And like you said, Andrea, you can't be entirely internally cued as a strength or physique. I would say as a weight class restricted strength athlete or a physique athlete, or really even as an athlete, because you're modifying your nutrition a little bit if you're trying to be optimal. But I think we just have to pay respect to the fact that we have a really good regulation system. And it's actually not normal in our society, whether you're an athlete or not, to be in tune with it. Most people who are not athletes are not in tune with it. We eat for convenience. We eat for cravings. We eat because it's a holiday. We eat because someone brought in cookies to the office. And that's why a large, substantial portion of the population is not happy with their level of body fat, or is actually unhealthy because of the amount of food they're eating. So there's I think a really important lesson for everyone, regardless of whether they're physique competitors or someone who's struggling with their body image because they're on the other end of the spectrum, that finding a healthier relationship with your hunger and satiety is a really valuable thing. And I think that needs to be something that we pay a little more heed to as bodybuilders, and maybe at least in the off season, that should be part of the plan. We should be getting back to internal cues in some kind of intentional way. And I think the recovery diet is a big part of that. We talk about that a bit there, and then you kind of have to continue that trend deep into the off season. And that's another reason not to compete every year, because even when you are physiologically recovered in many times, those signals don't go all the way back for a while, because there's two things that happen. For one, the signals get really jacked up. Your hunger goes through the roof, and satiety is non-present for a long time, and it lags behind fat gains even after the show's over. But you also have to ignore those signals or fight against them or actively try to not pay attention to them. So not only are the signals out of whack, but your awareness of them gets jacked up too. So you have to let the signals get back to normal, and you have to relearn what the signals mean, how much you should listen to them, and what kind of response you should have to them. And that takes time.
Yeah.
And I think experienced competitors can compete year to year and get back to baseline and insanity, but I don't think most people can. And I think that's a reason in and of itself to not compete every other year, in addition to, and you won't make any gains, so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Isn't it worth saying too, Eric, that like right now in today's world, food just tastes way too damn good. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I eat something that I know I don't need. I am already full, and I don't need to have another piece of cheesecake, cookie, whatever, but it just tastes so freaking good. And I remember something that I learned from you when we way, way, way long ago was that the only way I could control that was to tell myself it's going to be there tomorrow. I had to tell myself that food is not going to run away. And even if it does disappear because the kid ate it or the wife ate it or whatever, there's a store right down the road there that's got more of it, But sometimes I swear a lot of eating disorders and just obesity epidemic comes from food just tasting way too damn good right now.
Absolutely. It makes it, I think, and that gets exacerbated by how things, the flavor increases the hungrier you get, and we get, man, I think of all the weird ass behaviors that occur during prep, like when I start food guarding, like when I get hackles in the back of my neck when I'm making food, when someone walks near me, and I'm like, hey man, you need to give me space, all right? The caveman in me thinks you're trying to steal my meal. Yeah, and then just the fact that I have to remind myself, and that I said to so many clients, and I said to you, guess what? Your macro clock starts again in 24 hours. Like, you get the food again every day. You're going to be fine. Like, all of that stuff, it just goes to show you how, absolutely, when the flavor signals are just way too strong, that can overwhelm things. And like I was saying, we're less active, so we have less finely tuned satiety signaling, and then shit tastes really good. So of course we're overweight as a society.
Yeah. And that food that tastes really good, there's like this much food, and it's got this much calories. It's so a small amount of food for like hundreds, if not thousands, of calories.
For sure.
And that opens up the whole, like, if I used to do like, I want to be the responsible bodybuilder, and like we'd go to holidays and I'd be like, you need to eat all your turkey and all your vegetables, and then if you want and you're still hungry, you can have some dessert. And I'd obviously still have the dessert when, like, if I walk in, it's like, if I just listen to, like, I don't need 7 plates. I would, if I just went in and had a little bit of turkey and then had my pie, I'd have been satisfied way earlier and then not done that other shit. Mm-hmm. Where it's like almost like the tastier thing, like the allure of tasty things makes you do dumb shit sometimes. If you it's like I had to prove to myself that I cared about myself first, and it's like, actually you don't, because now you're too full.
Yeah, and you're
food is a reward causes food is a reward causes problems. That's for sure.
Man.
Yeah.
And then the last like giant consideration is like all of this, like we get, like even if you get it and you understand it, like we're not saying you don't have to ever track. That's not what we're saying. But I hope they didn't get that from you. But then it's also
they absolutely got to track if you want to get shredded.
Yeah. Well, no, but
99
even
out of 100 people.
It's not that you're. I guess in the same way that when I, my year after my last season, how I thought I was being a shitty off-season bodybuilder if I did any cardio. In that same vein, I don't want people to listen to this and be like, if I track and I'm in the off-season, then I am not a good bodybuilder, or I'm not a good athlete, or I'm, Eric said I was supposed to try to not track. And so, because I've done that shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The take home is your hunger and satiety signals have value.
Yeah.
You should try to get a better ability to listen to them. But if you don't have a good ability to listen to them, you got to do something in the interim. And this is it was a process for all three of us. It'll be a process for you too if you're not there yet and you want to get there. But don't be like, I'm a bad body. Like MyFitnessPal can no longer be on my phone and then just feeling lost and out of control and stressed and kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. You don't want to be in that spot either.
Yeah. Man. This goes into so much. Like how you feel about your body too, man.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Like how you think you look, which is okay.
Yeah, I mean, that drives a lot of it. You have to that's another one, just getting comfortable with the idea that shredded's not normal, nor healthy, nor desirable, nor good for performance. The only thing it is it matches what we would like to look like, and accepting the fact that you can't and you shouldn't look the way your favorite Instagram celebs look, or the way you looked even just weeks ago on stage, is that's not something you can just snap your fingers and accept. It takes time.
Yeah, that's a good point. It takes time. It's not that you can never look better at this body weight. It's just, like you said, Eric, like the first time you weighed 220 was not real exciting. And the same the first time I weighed this body weight. Not that it's exciting now, but I definitely have weighed more than this and looked less like I lifted.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we all experience that. I feel like 190, I wear a whole lot better right now than I did 182 about, 8 or 10 years ago.
Yep. And what's sad is that I know right now if I did not compete next year, I could walk around like this depending on the day, looking like I'm anywhere from 9 to 11% body fat. Really liking the way I look, looking good in the gym, having bicep veins, having an ab vein, etc., and having no real visible subcutaneous fat. Like I could do this forever if I wanted. And that by prepping next year, I will probably overshoot this in the period afterwards, just because things won't normalize again for a bit, because I will push myself to get so incredibly lean. Maybe not, but I know it'll be better than the worst it's ever been. But you lose touch with it, and your signals take a while to come back, both psychological and physiological. So I think, there'll be some point like 4 months after my show, and I'll be a little bit fatter than this, but hungrier, and I'll be like, man, like if I hadn't competed, I could be just walking around looking sexy, But
that's good to point out, though, that like I think we've all learned, and it took a long time to learn, that everything, as always, is temporary and fixable and changeable. We've all gained weight. We've all lost weight. We all know that nothing seems such a big deal anymore. Like if I got fat, I'd be like, let's get it together for 3 months, and I can get unfat. I've gotten unfat a lot of times. And I don't know. So I guess that's all those dumb decisions we talked about at the beginning of the podcast and all the crazy shit that we did and the stupid things. It's because it felt like, and I'm going to speak for all three of us, it feels like once I achieve this, then I am done. Once I, like it felt like such a big deal, like.
Or I had to.
Yeah.
There was pressure. There's a time thing. There's a period on this sentence, and if I fuck it up, then it is fucked.
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember after binging after my first show, and then like it was like the 48 hours after, I looked down and I was back up like another 15 pounds, and I was like, I ruined it. I can't believe I ruined it. What is wrong with you? And that was like 15 pounds less than I am right now, But I was just like, I fucked it all up. It's gone. You worked so hard and it's gone. Like it just felt like misery,
Yeah.
And it's,
yeah, for sure.
But now,
and no one to blame but yourself.
Yeah.
Knowing that mindset doesn't make sense, and thinking about the big picture and all that stuff. Like that's why the recovery diet is so important. Because that's when you're the least sane and you're the most at risk, And I think going from embracing recovery and then moving towards all the stuff we're talking about has been, it's been such a game changer for the longevity of people in the sport that I've worked with and their mindset.
Thank you guys for making the recovery diet. That was before me.
Well, you can, Jeff's the one who coined that. So.
Oh yeah, I saw that in the pyramids that you said that.
Shout to his caveman analogy.
Speaking of the pyramids, they will be out a couple days before this podcast comes out. So if you haven't checked it out yet, the new edition of the Muscle and Strength Pyramids is at muscleandstrengthpyramids.com. It is
I like
fresh.
how you're comfortable gambling on us sticking to our due dates a month in advance.
We're gonna do it. I'm in charge. We're gonna do it.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Just put it out there, and so it will become.
It will be done. And I definitely didn't finish the first draft behind schedule, so there's no reason to believe anything else will be.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. If it's not out now, it's definitely out within a few days. But I think it's out now. Because I have faith in us.
You're hearing this. There's this. We believe it will be out at the point.
And if you hold on, I'm going to keep plugging. If you already bought the Muscle and Strength Pyramids, both the pair of books, you are getting this new update and all other updates for the rest of time for free. They'll just be emailed to you.
Yeah, all you got to do is check your email.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys for chatting. That was a really useful podcast, and I like talking about stories.
Word.
Okay. See you.
Thank you.
Hey everybody, it's Eric Helms. Thanks for tuning into our podcast. As you know, at 3DMJ we promote evidence-based approaches to the lifting community. If that's something you want to dive deeper into, I'd encourage you to check out my research review, Monthly Applications in Strength Sport, or for short, MASS. This is a review that myself, Dr. Mike Zerdos, and Greg Knuckles put out every month. We cover the latest research publications that are applicable to strength and physique athletes, or anyone who's looking to get stronger or improve their body comp. Our content is in both written and video format. For more information on how to subscribe, check out 3dmusclejourney.com/mass. That's 3dmusclejourney.com/MASS for further details. Thanks for tuning in.